welcome to the Old Brother Podcast. I'm your host, Stan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith.
Hey Dan, how you doing?
Hey, man, welcome back. We are going to do this was one back and forth, but I think it's
Yeah,
right. I think it's right that we do it in tribute to the late great John Candy. So this is the documentary that is on Prime as of this recording. John Candy, I Like Me. It started streaming on Prime October 10th, 2025. It was interesting because I saw, I sometimes I bring up the Fly in the Wall podcast with Carvey and Spade,
right.
and they just had Mike Myers on with his brother Paul Myers, and Paul is a writer, and Paul released a biography or biography on John Candy, A Life in Comedy,
Oh wow.
like 3 days before this documentary came out.
Wow.
And it was just sort of coincidence in the timing, and, he actually looked at it as a positive thing, gets Candy, his legacy in the
Right.
conversation, and,
We were gonna
so
do it as soon
yeah,
as it came out, but it happened to be Halloween Fest and we were in the middle of that.
nothing gets in the way of Halloween Fest here at
Right.
the Old Brother Podcast. So, and if you're not currently subscribed to the Old Brother Podcast, whether it be video or audio, video, those watching, Mike, they can just click this QR code that they can see up here above our heads. Mike bringing out the
Think
technology, camera app, snap, and there you go. And then also, you can subscribe in the audio podcast. In fact, in the show notes, if you're listening, in the show notes, there's a link there to support the show for just a few shekels, and you can Google it, kids. You can help Mike and I continue to do what we're doing, which is bringing the goods every week to
right.
the fans, right? And so,
We
if it,
haven't had a week off in ages.
yeah, we really haven't. Every time we say we're going to take a big hiatus, it never happens. But and we've, and this is no different. We're going to continue on through the holidays, and 'tis the season. So that is really why we thought it was even more apropos that we talk about Candy, because we're big fans of planes, trains, and automobiles. For those watching,
Huge.
Mike, of course, is sporting the planes, trains, and automobiles poster there behind him, and obviously the physical media.
I gotta ask you a question about planes, trains, and automobiles. Because I know I sent you the 4K digital, correct?
Yes.
Did it have all the deleted scenes on it? Because we've never talked about it.
I believe it does. I
It's
believe it
like
does.
40 plus minutes.
Yeah, I believe
And
so.
I
And that was
watched it last night to get ready for this.
that was a physical disc that I had for quite some time, and then
Oh, okay.
I finally got rid of it, as I have with most of my physical media. But so yeah, it's fitting because of course, planes, trains, and automobiles is a you know technically a Thanksgiving themed film. We tend to watch it every time,
Every
every
Thanksgiving.
year around
Yep.
this. Yeah,
Yep.
look, I even have the video podcast adorned with some Thanksgiving accoutrement. So you can see down. I got this little. Do you see the little turkey? Don't you?
I do.
With the
Yeah. With the
wheelbarrow. Yeah,
wagon.
yeah, with the wagon. So, Mike, John Candy, I Like Me. Again, it's on Prime. This is directed by Colin Hanks. For those that don't know, that's of course Tom Hanks' son, and he's a very talented artist in his own right, and did just a fantastic job with this documentary. Ryan Reynolds, we should say, is also behind the production.
Right.
This I have an image shot here of Reynolds and Hanks, and then Candy's two kids, who are featured throughout the
Yes.
documentary. Christopher and Jennifer, I believe, is her name. Um, but yeah, go
I
ahead. Something you want to say?
well, I kept watching this thinking, why did this take so long? I mean, he died in 1994. I know there
Mm.
was a tribute to John Candy, but I don't know why now. Why, like, after all these years, why didn't we get it sooner? But I'm just glad we got it.
Well, you got. Ryan Reynolds, right, who has got his hands in everything these days, superstar, and he's also Canadian, right? So this is near and dear to his heart, and
Right.
yeah, who knows the answer to why? I mean, it's not like his legacy hasn't lived on in many of the great films that he's been in, but
Do you
um,
think young people know who John Candy is?
I think they might from some of the holiday films or what
Right.
I consider to be holiday films, Uncle Buck and those
Home Alone.
Home Alone, and then, obviously Planes, Trains. So, but yeah, that's a good question, and if we've got listeners, viewers on the younger side and the younger demo, drop some comments and let us know, are you familiar with John Candy? Because it's, maybe a hard sell here with that particular demographic, but, this I watched it again last night, second time I'd seen it.
Yeah,
It
me
hit
too.
it hit just as hard the second time around. You mentioned Halloween Fest, Mike. We should say, Candy was born on Halloween
Right.
in
Which is
1950.
ironic.
Another little tie-in, and then he passed away March 4th, 1994. As you mentioned, 94. He was only 43 years old, and that is relevant also because it's really sort of the impetus in a lot of ways behind things that are portrayed in the documentary. And where I'm going with that is his father, Sidney or Sid, died. He was 35 years old, I think.
35. John Candy was 5 at the time.
Right.
So basically, and they didn't talk about it. It was just kinda something they kept buried.
You mean the family?
The family.
Yes. Yeah. It's
And John, being 5 years old, kinda took over as the
mhm,
dad. Imagine, being 5 and being put in that position. It's
mhm.
kinda crazy.
Yeah, and yeah, it is hard to kind of wrap your head around that. But the documentary starts out with this really impactful voiceover from Dan Aykroyd, who is giving a eulogy
Right.
at one of the services that took place in Toronto, and I believe it was the one in Toronto. And yeah,
And
you'll be hard pressed to find a better eulogy or speech. It is just so well crafted and so heartfelt. It's wow.
And they
It's
never
amazing.
show him. You just hear
Correct.
his voice, and
Correct.
they show pictures over it. And then to bookend it, you hear Catherine O'Hara, who they worked together on SCTV, which I
Mhm.
think I have cut off, yeah. But, yeah, and he died on Catherine O'Hara's 40th birthday,
Mm.
which is
Mhm.
another weird fact.
Yeah, and she
And,
talks about having dreams about him after he was gone,
yeah, there's the SCTV
strangely.
talking about.
Right, Mike has all of the discs up
And
there,
it
yeah.
basically what it is it's a chronicle of his career and his
Mhm.
life too. I mean,
Yeah, it's interwoven, yeah.
it's interwoven, and there's interviews with basically everyone he's ever worked with. Um, Starting with all the people on SCTV, which is where I first found John Candy in the 70s.
Mhm.
And, it's funny because Tom Hanks, Colin's dad, which people know,
Mhm.
um, he says a couple of things that so resonated with me. Like he found the show because it was in syndication, and it always was. And me and our older brother had the same experience on Friday night. It was like 1 a.m. We came across this show,
Mhm.
and we both found it funnier than Saturday Night Live, which was the big comedy show at the time. And you had to discover it. It wasn't like in the TV guide. It wasn't, like a known thing.
It was very underground, yeah, and you should talk about the history behind that. I mean, before that, it's, of course, Second City.
And before that, it's a thing called Godspell, which
Mhm.
I didn't know. That I learned in the documentary.
Yeah.
This group of comedian actors, mostly Canadians,
Mhm.
formed Godspell. and it was an improv group. And that led to, Second City was already in Chicago.
Wasn't Godspell the play? Wasn't that just a play that they were
No,
in?
no.
Okay.
Yeah,
That was
that's
the
the
comedy
difference.
troupe. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. There is a play that's
Right.
infamous called Godspell,
Yeah.
but this is based on an improv group.
Right.
And as I was saying, Second City was
Sh
successful in Chicago.
Sure.
And then they opened up because there was a lot of comedians in Canada that had no place to work. So they started Second City Toronto.
Mhm.
And it's amazing to see all the SNL originals were part of
Mhm.
it.
Sure.
Like people I didn't realize were so close to Candy. Like it starts off with who? Bill Murray talking about the two of them. Yeah, Dan had it right on cue. We don't rehearse this ahead of time.
It's,
So
it
to pull
it's
that
our
up,
it's our producer does fine work.
yeah, and to pull it up just as I say it,
Yeah.
this is the opening. And
Mhm.
he's basically saying, well, if I'm going to talk about John Candy, I'm going to say something negative because he's, nobody's got anything negative to say about him. And he can't come up with anything.
Mhm.
And
Right.
then it leads to a bunch of talking heads, kind of like this,
Mhm.
all talking about John Candy and how brilliant he is. And that's where people criticize it, which I don't get. I don't know if you've looked at any of the scores or the reviews,
Mhm.
but I,
Yeah,
I
we'll talk
looked at
about that.
some of them. And the ones that are tough on it are like, well, people are viewing this through, rose colored glasses. I didn't see it that way at
N
all.
Not at all. Not
I
at
thought
all.
Colin Hanks showed the depression, showed the anxiety,
Absolutely. Ab
showed,
Sure.
you know,
Yeah,
the meanness
yeah,
of
it
people.
oh my goodness. Yeah, we'll get into that. I mean, it's very there's a great progression
Yeah,
throughout the documentary, and I think the brilliance here is, as we said earlier, the way that it's interwoven with, at some points you find yourself laughing and grinning because you're seeing all these clips of Candy and various, projects and film and TV, and then cut to something personal about his life with his dad or his brother or what have you. And so,
right,
the eulogy that Aykroyd gives, he ends it and he has this statement that he punctuates it in such a way that it stuck with me. But struggling to find an apt way to kind of characterize this man, and he says he was a grand man because grand isn't a word that is used very much these days. And I think that, I mean, you talk about a guy that, whether it was heavily or completely born out of his trauma with losing his dad at 5 years old, you hear the phrase give you the shirt off his back. That appears to be who John Candy was, to a fault, Mike, and that is what kind of the climax of the documentary, right? It all builds to that. He's giving, he's giving, he's giving,
right,
but he's not taking care of himself.
correct. And the thing that always bugs me a little bit when something tragic like this happens, whether it's Chris Farley or John Belushi,
Mhm.
you can see it coming, but
Mm.
nobody steps in to do the proper intervention. I mean, Steve Martin talked about, I don't think it's in this documentary, but I've seen other interviews where they set up a whole gym for him on the set of Planes, Trains, and
Mhm.
Candy never even used
Mhm.
any of it. And if you see him in Wagons East, which was his final film, he had ballooned up to, he must be close to 400 pounds at this point
Mhm.
because he normally carried about 350. And ironically, his brother has a heart attack. His brother, he gets his brother a job working on Second City as a technical guy,
Yeah, Jim.
Jim,
Mhm.
and he has a heart attack, and his dressing room, or and John Candy, who is notoriously always smoking, is lamenting about how his brother's not taking care of himself. He's not eating right. He's
Mhm.
smoking. He's drinking. And there he is with a drink in one hand and a cigarette in the other.
Right.
And like I said, those close to him saw this coming.
Yeah,
Yet,
well, yeah, I don't think it's entirely fair to say that there were no attempts because some of them talk about how they would say to him, but he didn't wanna hear it, right? That's
yeah,
oftentimes when someone is struggling with something like that, mental health issues, whatever. I mean, he was suffering from anxiety, and so forth, as they talk about in the documentary. It's really hard to get through. It's really hard to get through.
yeah, and especially when you see these interviews. There's this one woman, I don't know who the hell she was, but
Yeah, I know
she
what you're
is
talking about.
being extremely cruel,
Mhm,
talking about, well, don't you think if you lost some weight, you'd get better roles and you'd be in like a leading man, and
mhm,
you're seeing him react, and he's being as nice as can be to this woman
mhm.
instead of getting up and walking out, which he should have done.
Always the gentleman, always the gen
Correct.
but you could see the way that the footage that Hanks uses and some of they'll push in on Candy's face
Yeah.
as the interviewer is saying something really hurtful, quite frankly, and he just finds a way around it, but you could see it in his eyes. He
Yeah.
appears to be wounded by it, quite honestly.
Absolutely. Like, to me, that those moments, and there was another one with a male who
Mhm.
was standing there saying, if Gran doesn't describe his new movie, well,
The
maybe he
big
does,
it
because
was
it
something big, and he said, "Well, if you needed to know what big means or something, just look here at John Candy." I
right.
mean, it was so insane.
Oh, and
It
he
was so
laughs it
insane.
off,
Right, and
and he
see,
gets self-deprecating.
to your point, where's his, agent at that point to step in and interview's over, like, it's
Right.
over. But
And I don't
again,
think he had one. That was the problem.
well, that's a fair point,
And then
maybe, yeah.
you find out about the pay scenario, right?
Mhm.
Where most of the cast of
Yes.
SCTV, they were paid as writers, and
Mhm,
this is very common, and they were paid as performers.
mhm.
Candy was only being paid as a performer, yet who's the guy picking up the check?
Well, it's Johnny Toronto.
Johnny Toronto, a character who he portrays on SCTV, I think, as Johnny LaRue. I
Yes.
think that's Johnny Toronto, because I
Yeah.
don't remember him
Mhm.
doing that character. But Johnny LaRue was absolutely Johnny Toronto.
But you're right, he's making a third of what they're getting, and he's picking up the tab everywhere, you know?
Right.
But how much do you think this I feel a kinship here too because we've got Canadian roots, in our lineage, and, I wondered how much of if Candy had been born somewhere else, if he had been born in New York or something, right?
Yeah.
Boston, frankly, but this Canadian humility, that
Yeah.
all the Canadians have, right? I
Right.
wonder how much did that exacerbate what he was going through in the sense that all he knows in his DNA is to give and be humble and be helpful, and he's raised in a blue collar family, like, he understood the value of a dollar, all of these things.
Right.
It just went through my mind that must have just kind of compounded things for him because that was in his DNA to be
Yeah.
that
And
kind
and
of person.
and at the very end, there's an irony of he had just given a donation
Yes.
anonymously to a hospital
Mhm.
located in the city where he was working when, I think it was in Los Angeles. He was living in Los Angeles when he died.
Well, that film, I believe they were filming in Mexico.
Probably.
I think it was in Mexico they were filming that. Yeah, the Wagons East that you mentioned. But
Yeah.
and, we were just talking about on the podcast too, I forget which episode it was, but how we were reviewing the trailer for, Is This Thing On with Will Arnett, and
Yes.
we talked about how all good comedy is born out of tragedy. And here's
Right.
another great example. of that with Candy and what he had gone through at such a young age. And you can't help but think of obviously Belushi you mentioned, which ironically he would end up being in a film with him, a Spielberg film,
1941, yeah.
no less. That's
Not a
pretty
great film,
not a great
and
film.
I love his response when he's asked about it. He says,
Yeah.
"Well, there's parts of it I like, there's parts of it I don't like."
Yes, he's very honest
Just
about it.
honest.
Very honest about it. But, Chris Farley comes to mind, right? Same kind of thing. Oh, the fat clown, the overweight clown,
Right.
and and you see that in the documentary with John Candy. He knows his wife Rose. Geez, some real emotional sequences with his wife in the documentary. But
Who they got
saying that
married very young,
very young, yeah. But
and
she talks about how he knew that's what they wanted from him,
yeah.
right? Like the funny fat man, and he
He was
played up
even
to it.
told, "Don't lose," because he goes on
Yeah,
Letterman.
right.
I think it's the morning show that Letterman did, and
Mm,
he's on there, and he had just come out of a facility that,
mhm,
works on weight loss,
mhm,
and one one of his upcoming films, they're like, "Don't lose any more weight."
mhm.
And they also his breakout film was, um, with
Splash.
Bill Murray. No,
Oh,
with Bill
oh,
Murray,
you mean
Stripes,
Stripes. Stripes. Yeah.
where they
Yes.
have him wrestling with these strippers,
Mud wrestling, yeah.
and he was supposed to take his shirt off, and he was
Right.
embarrassed, and that's,
Un
Dave
Unlike
Thomas telling that story.
Dave Thomas, yeah, and unlike Chris Farley in the famous Patrick Swayze Chippendales sketch, he
Right,
goes full on for it,
right,
throws the
right.
shirt off and the belly's hanging out and everything. Yeah, Stripes for sure, but as they point out in the film, in 1984, when Splash comes out, and of course that's where he gets connected with Tom
Right,
Hanks.
they're playing brothers.
This now he's reaching that superstardom level at this
Yeah.
point, right?
Yep.
It's off the Richter scale, and it's kind of interesting because they talk about with some of the films like Uncle Buck and some of the others, he's almost sort of in a way portraying the father figure that he never had himself. It was kind of I found
One
that
of my
interesting.
one of my favorite clips,
Mm.
there's 2 that stick
From
out from the
from
documentary.
the documentary, yeah.
There's 2 clips that stick out. The
Mhm.
first is Macaulay Culkin,
Yeah.
okay? Here's a
Mhm.
kid raised by a jerk of a father, to be kind, who was a jerk before Macaulay Culkin was making money,
His words, not ours.
his words, and became kind of a monster when he was, because he was basically, using him to make a living. But to
Mhm.
see how and he's talking about how John Candy sees it. He
Mhm.
sees the kid getting probably scalded by his dad, and
Sure
he's
does.
checking in on him constantly. "Are you okay?
Yeah, how you doing?
Everything good?"
Mhm.
The other thing I love about it is to see Macaulay Culkin so healthy.
Oh, yeah.
The
Yeah.
last time I saw him, he was thin, he looked like he was in crisis mode.
He's a guy that could have easily gone the way of so many other child actors, but, first of all, he's one of these gifted he was a gifted young
As a
act
kid,
actor, yeah, he really had the skills, and I'm like you, I guess because for me, even more so, right, I'm coming up in my formative years at the time of these films, and so seeing him is it's heartwarming. I was glad he got so much airtime in this documentary to tell those stories. They were
and he
really,
was
really
he was very
emotional.
articulate,
Yeah.
and I just love seeing him healthy, and I can't wait. I hope, he's been working, and a lot of behind the scenes stuff, like voice working,
Mhm.
but he looks, I mean, his brother just won an Oscar, his
I
younger
mean,
brother.
it's interesting, right, that his brother sort of catapults and is now right in the limelight. But
And he
yeah.
probably protected
Mhm.
Kierkegaard. is my guess. That's just me
Who knows?
speculating.
Yeah, yeah, but, was it The Good Son? Was that the one he did with
Yeah.
his bro with them, the 2 of them? And,
Yes.
yeah, I was really excited to see him as well, and, we should say then, cut to 1987, who enters the picture now that's gonna be a prominent figure in Candy's life from a filmmaking standpoint? The great, late also, John Hughes.
Right. Another guy, even though he was in his 50s, died
Yeah,
way too young
way too young.
and was such a prolific filmmaker. I mean, Candy was in 9 of his films,
Mhm.
and Uncle Buck and Planes, Trains, those were written for him.
What comes to mind, Mike, when you see this image?
You know, the funny thing is that Steve Martin, in his mind, seeing this,
Yeah, let's describe it
this
for the folks that are listening and not
he's
watching.
basically in the airport, although he basically steals early on in the film, in the opening sequence, he steals Steve Martin's cab.
Yeah,
So Steve Martin and him, and that's a very long sequence, by the way, which they show on the extras.
yes.
But that's such a brilliant shot because you see him in the airport, but you also see him on the street
Mhm.
stealing the cab, making eye contact with Steve Martin.
Yeah, they're stranded in the airport, and so after this incident, like you said, he takes his taxi. They're in the airport, and Steve Martin looks over and thinks he recognizes him, and then this image flashes up really quickly,
Yeah,
and it just the brilliance that of Hughes to make it look like Candy's in the taxi, but it's just a door in the airport.
right.
It's just
I
so
mean,
but it's also, again, it can't be overstated, that very quick scene, Candy's reaction is just absolute comedy gold. It's
yeah.
comedy gold.
And, Catherine Harrer talks about Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, the scene that I've used so many times as an audition piece
Mm.
where Steve Martin goes off on him.
Can we take a minute on this episode to pay tribute to that scene? Would you mind if we do that?
Are you gonna show it?
Yeah, let's just
I'd love to see it.
I'm gonna
And
show a
it
piece of it, and it's worth letting it play out for just a bit. So
let's watch it.
let's take a listen here.
I'll try not to mimic it.
You want to hurt me? Go right ahead if it makes you feel any better. I'm an easy target. Yeah, you're right. I talk too much. I also listen too much. I could be a cold-hearted cynic like you. But I don't like to hurt people's feelings. Well, you think what you want about me. I'm not changing. I like me. My wife likes me. My customers like me. Because I'm the real article. What you see is what you get.
I
And
thought
as
you
you
were gonna
said,
show
no.
the other side of that.
No, because that's the magic in the
Right,
scene, right?
right,
It's
it
it's
is.
easy for Steve to be, but prior to that, Steve Martin, Neil Page is his character's name. He's just berating Candy for like
And it
2
goes
minutes. Just
on
it goes
and
on and
on
on,
and on.
and again, the acting chops where Candy is just reacting to that.
Yes.
You just see him sinking, and if you've got any soul or heart whatsoever, if you don't feel what Candy's feeling, I don't know what to tell you. But Mike, they say imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, right? So I want to play another short clip
Okay.
that will demonstrate that, and kind of also support where that sequence of what is a great film in its totality, but where that sequence is in the pantheon.
Okay.
Me? Go right ahead if it makes you feel any better. I'm an easy target. Yeah, you're right. I talk too much. I also listen too much. I could be a cold-hearted cynic like you, but I don't like to hurt people's feelings. When you think what you want about me, I'm not changing. I like me. My kids like me. My friends like me. Because I'm the real article. What you see is what you get.
The great Peter Griffin, of course, from Family Guy. And, you know, even the fact that Seth MacFarlane has him do that. I like me, like the
Right.
stutter. It's just so good.
And, you know, Steve Martin talks about the sequence because
Mhm.
and that's the
Sure.
sequence that I used to use to audition. I always said I'm gonna do the Candy
Mhm.
side of it, but it wasn't long enough.
Mhm.
Although in the deleted scenes, you find out it is longer
Mhm.
and there is a whole sequence to do, but that's the tougher sequence. But Steve Martin says, you know, here I am, you know, berating him, and I'm watching him just react, and I'm like, this is a movie.
Yeah,
I'm just reading this.
we're just playing around
Yeah,
here.
this isn't me.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
But
how good a performance that is.
and that is a perfect film, top to bottom. That's an
If
absolutely
you have
perfect
not
film.
seen
Mhm.
Planes, Trains, and All, you owe it to yourself. It's coming up on Thanksgiving.
We always promote it during this time of year. We've done an
Grab a
episode on
copy.
it. Watch the Oh Brother episode on that as well. But Mike, let's move on from the John Hughes era, and let's move forward in the documentary and talk about 1991 when Candy gets an opportunity to be part of the Toronto Argonauts.
Yeah, that was big news. Back then, the CFL was competing with the NFL.
Now, this is where I love to sit back because
Ye-
Mike, for those that don't know, Mike is one of the greatest minds of sports that I know personally. Knows everything, even down into some of the collegiate level sports. Maybe not quite as much, but you could have been a sportscaster in another
Yeah,
life.
probably that's somewhere in my DNA
So
somewhere. Just,
tell
but
us all you
yeah,
know about the CFL.
well, the CFL is the Canadian Football League,
Yeah.
and you know, it was beloved in Canada, and they were starting to compete with the NFL. So
Mhm.
people were coming out of college, and the CFL started to pay more money than the NFL. So they were getting some of the stars.
You got Wayne Gretzky involved with
Right.
this, right?
Wayne Gretzky and this other millionaire
Mhm.
call up John Candy and say, "Hey, do you want to invest in the Toronto Argonauts?" Well, John
It
Candy wanted to be a football player.
Yeah, isn't that the guy that you said isn't that the guy that ended up getting convicted of
Yes.
right.
And
Mc
and
Mc
ultimately doesn't even make a phone call to Candy to tell him. He thought he was such a great guy.
Right. But
Um,
some shady dealings,
s-
yeah.
and he winds up going to jail.
McNall, I think was his
Yeah,
name. Yeah,
Bruce was his first name. But
yeah.
so John Candy jumps at the chance to
Mhm,
buy a piece of the Argonauts. And not only does he buy them, but he becomes their biggest fan.
mhm.
It's freezing cold in Canada, and he's not up in the box with the other owners, with Gretzky and Bruce. He's on the field.
Mhm.
And there's a guy that played for the Argonauts at the time in the documentary that obviously formed this very close relationship
Yeah,
where Candy was honest and talked openly with him.
right.
But yeah, ultimately, you know, the NFL kind of put the CFL out of business.
Well, you had said that he wanted to play football, but then like happens to many guys, he injured his knee, and he literally he had his kneecap removed and not replaced,
Not
folks.
replaced.
Just removed, no kneecap. I never knew that about John Candy.
Unbelievable.
And he also wanted to enlist in the military, and he couldn't because then the injury
The
prevented that.
United States military
Correct.
to boot because
Again,
Vietnam.
yeah. Again, Candy's personality and so forth is quite amazing. So that around that time, he's really going full bore into this enterprise,
Yes.
but I think he starts to recognize that, oh, I'm sort of like been out of the limelight now and doing the Hollywood thing. And then, right, he starts to have some sort of like crisis of, well, as his wife in the documentary talks about, are they going to want to cast me in anything anymore, et cetera,
Yeah.
et cetera. So then what does he do, Mike? He starts working too much
Yeah.
by doing, and he even talks about it in the documentary, there's clips of him saying in one interview, I was doing favors for friends and
Yes.
people, and
Home Alone, he
Oof.
did not get paid for that.
Mhm.
And he only had 24 hours in his schedule. And he said to the director, it was Chris Columbus who directed Home
Yeah,
Alone.
right.
He said, use me as much as you want. And what does he
Mhm.
do? He works him like 23 of the 24
He
hours.
did.
And
And
it's
Candy
some
just
funny stuff.
some funny stuff with Catherine O'Hara,
Yeah.
and, but but he would do a lot of just I mean, there was what Camp Candy was a cartoon at one point,
Yeah.
and he had,
Yeah.
like, a radio thing, and just
He
he
couldn't
had his
say no to anybody.
he couldn't, he had his hands in too many pies. Then, so again, couple that with he's not taking care of himself, he's carrying a lot of weight, physically and mentally, right? And he's dealing with anxiety. They start talking about this towards the end.
Right.
And one of the actors that's featured, and I forget his name, but he's in a lot of the Christopher Guest films, like Best in Show. And he was on Wagons East with him.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I think it's seen him the day that he ended up passing away. And he tells the story of how it made me think of our conversation during the Springsteen Deliver Me From Nowhere episode where, Bruce has this panic attack, this breakdown at a
Yeah.
county fair. And it's a very central point in his, the arc of his life and his career. And it just made me think of that because that's what happens on Wagons East. He says, hey, right, he's got this panic attack and he's got to go back to his room. And that would be the last that anybody would ever see of him alive.
I watched an interview, a Collider interview with
Mm,
the two kids,
mhm,
and they were talking about the film. And they asked them, yeah, because now they're both doing theater and comedy and whatnot.
mhm,
So they're taken up in his footsteps. And they ask him, what's your favorite film? And the son, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. The daughter points out JFK. And I
Oh,
don't know if you remember that performance
I
or not,
do. I do.
but it was a dramatic
Yes.
performance. And in it, he's like basically telling on the bad guys and he's sweating. And
Mhm,
it's not spray on, it's real, authentic sweat. And she saw him going that route in his career.
mhm.
And when he talks about being with the Argonauts and, hey, maybe the Hollywood thing, his wife says meanwhile, there's a table full of scripts. People want him to do this, that, and the other thing. And he does a lot of them.
Mhm.
Do you remember one of the first movies you and I watched of his over and over with Eugene Levy?
No.
Armed and Dangerous.
Oh, Armed and Dangerous. Well, it wasn't you and I, it was you, me, and Dad
Right, the
watched it
three of us.
because that's where the whole recurring bit through our lives when Dad was here, we would talk about, the world is a shithole filled with
Right.
shitty scumbags doing shitty things, whatever that line was.
Scared shitless.
Scared shitless. That's a great geez, I'd forgotten about Armed and Dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, talk a little bit about Mike, Conan is in the
That was,
documentary.
I said there was two ones I really enjoyed.
Yeah, so
Macaulay
talk
Culkin.
a bit about Conan.
Conan talks about Conan's a young kid at Harvard, right? Everybody knows by now.
I'm glad you're starting out with that because I know where you're gonna go, which is what I wanted you to get to.
Okay.
Yeah, so
The sketch.
yes.
But I'm going to start with him at Harvard. They decide, Harvard has this, now it's called what? The Hasty Pudding Award.
Yeah,
And they bring somebody on campus famous every year and they have a parade.
right.
Well, this is before that. And, Lampoon came out of Harvard and Conan's a student and he's the one that brings up, hey, why don't we have John Candy come and visit the campus? And John Candy, of course, says yes. And Conan picks him up at the airport and he says, I'm waiting at Logan Airport. And there on the escalator is John Candy with his big camera, like a tourist around his neck, snapping pictures. And you see a couple of the shots. he took of Conan. And
Yeah.
Conan says, that's the proof I have that I was once in the company of greatness.
Very meaningful. You mentioned Lampoon. Of course, Candy has this great cameo in Vacation. National.
Vacation, which wasn't originally part of the story.
Can you imagine that? Yeah.
The ending was not testing well, and they bring in John Candy to save it.
And he did.
A classic film like Vacation.
Yes. Which
But
written by
Harold Ramis.
No, wasn't
Right?
it John Hughes?
Did John? Oh yeah, you're right. You're
Right?
right.
There's
Harold
another
Ramis directed it.
Yeah, there's another connection there.
That's right. But to get back to Conan,
Yes.
Conan talks about, and I remember it. I think it's in the first volume of SCTV.
Yeah.
John Candy plays this character called Yellow Belly, right? He's dressed up almost like a Cub Scout. Right? And
That
Catherine
I don't have a picture of that.
All right. Well, Catherine O'Hara and her 5-year-old son are walking by, and he says to Catherine O'Hara, and John Candy's just walking around like frightened,
Like scared. Yeah.
like jittering.
Yeah. Right.
And the little kid says, "Hey, isn't that Yellow Belly?" And they're about 10 feet past him, and he pulls out a gun and he shoots the kid in the back. And then the mother starts going off. How could you do that? How could you kill my son? And he pulls a gun and shoots her.
And then he just runs off.
It's such a Conan sketch.
It is. And Conan said, seeing it at the time that he did, right? Again, he's in his formative years and he stumbles, as you talked about with Hanks, like and you and our older brother, you stumble on this. Like, what is this about? I mean, you got to consider this is the late 70s, early 80s.
Yes.
To see something like that on film is just unheard of, that you could do that, which of course Conan would do a lot of the similar bits.
Bizarre bit. I mean, that's why we loved those early, people who hated Conan early, we loved him.
Oh yeah.
Because he was doing stuff outside. The
Yeah.
same thing with Second City. The reason Second City was better, in my opinion, than SNL was they couldn't do topical stuff because they were in syndication. They never knew when it was going to air. So if they did a bit that was a current event piece, it just wouldn't work. So to me, it made the cast have to think that much more out of the box and be that much more clever.
You're right. Now, was Rick Moranis on SCTV? Because, I'm thinking of Strange Brew with Dave Thomas.
Well, those characters, that's where they were born.
Okay, that was from SCTV,
That was from SC. And he's the one guy missing in this documentary. I know he was at the funeral service. And again, he's been out. He's coming back for Spaceballs 2. For people who don't know Rick Moranis, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, which was offered to John Candy, that role.
Yeah, and right, and of course, Candy plays Barf in
Spaceballs.
Spaceballs, yeah.
So Spaceballs 2 is on the horizon. Rick Moranis coming back after a long hiatus.
Now, which I can't wait to see him back. It's so great. But Mel Brooks is also featured in the, speaking of Spaceballs, in the, who is about approaching 100, and I mean, he's a freak of nature. And still sharp as a whip.
Oh man,
as a tack. But he's in the documentary talking just about, again, he was just enamored with John Candy.
Just a sweetheart. How many times did we hear sweetheart?
Absolutely. And do you think that he will do some sort of, do you think they'll be recasting Barf or something?
I don't think they'd go that far.
I got to believe he's going to do some sort of nod to Candy.
I would think so. There'll be something in there to pay tribute. Whether it's on screen or not, kind of like Guillermo del Toro did with Frankenstein. There was a Boris Karloff sticker on the wall of him as Frankenstein that you don't see.
Oh, I missed
but it's
that.
there for inspiration.
Oh, I see. Okay, I got you. Now, you earlier mentioned the rating. So IMDb has a Metascore on this of 69. Rotten Tomatoes, the critics 89%, the audience 97%, which is where I am.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I really, and again, when you look at the ones that are negative that pull that down, especially on the
Mhm.
meta score, there's not that many reviews. So a
Right.
couple of bad ones
Sure.
and it sets it off. But they're talking about how, oh, instead of showing us the darkness, we're only seeing the good.
Yeah.
I didn't
I
think
don't
that at all.
I don't know what they're watching. I really
Yeah.
don't.
The
It
stuff that was heart-wrenching to me was some of that personal stuff
yeah,
and
and, you know,
seeing him get his feelings hurt.
I don't think I agree. I don't think that we really made this comment or connection, but, we talk, of course, about him losing his dad at 5 years old. Well, Candy's son is going through the same experience.
Yeah.
And what I thought was really intriguing is him describing his experience as because his dad was already an established Hollywood,
Yeah, he
icon
said
in
he
comedy.
came on the scene around Summer Rental.
Yeah, and he yeah, there's another classic, but he described it as being kind of a life detective, going back and trying to really figure out who his father was beyond what he saw on film and television. It was really, kinda moving, but, yeah, this is one you've gotta see, and I don't know if you noticed, Mike, at the end, when the credits are rolling,
Yeah.
of course, from Plane, Trains, and Automobiles, there's the great Paul Young singing "Every Time You Go Away" over the end credits, and it actually starts to play during the final sequence of that film. So I don't know if you know that song was written by Daryl Hall.
Yes, and it was
He has a
sung in that by Cynthia Erivo.
yes, I didn't know if you were picking up on that because, of course, Wicked is, all the rage, and
Yeah.
just a beautiful rendition of that she gives at the end of this documentary. Colin is following in his father's documentarian footsteps here with
You
this
gotta be
release.
careful too, because I don't know if this happened to you, but I'm watching it, and once the credits come out, Netflix likes to or Prime likes to shoot you to the next film.
Yes, you gotta click away and go
You gotta
back and
click
watch the
away and go back because it
yeah,
ends with
right.
something I'm not sure if it was an outtake or if this was something real because it's John Candy and Steve
Yes.
Martin in the train station, and he says, "Yeah, let's open the trunk and see what's in there."
What is that about?
I have no clue.
I don't I even after the second viewing, I couldn't understand the significance of that. It was
I
cool to see it.
I have a feeling John Candy kept something in the trunk,
Now,
whether it was
spoiler alert, this is a scene in the film where Steve Martin's character basically realizes that all throughout the film, Candy has been telling a fib about his wife who is no longer alive, quite frankly.
right.
He's
She's been
making it
gone
seem like
for 8 years.
yeah, he's on a business trip, and so he's really just living out of this trunk, and, but yeah, you're right.
Homeless. He's a
This kind
homeless guy.
yeah, yeah, this
But I
outtake.
don't think that was an outtake. I think like, I would not have been shocked for him to reach in and say, "Here, I got some devil dogs. Do you want one?" Or, something bizarre in the trunk
I don't
that he
know.
carried around.
If someone out there listening or watching knows the significance, the symbolism, the meaning of that, if there is something deeper, please let us know. Drop some comments on the video and let us know.
And the last thing I'll say is when John Hughes finished Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, it was 3 hours, 40 minutes.
It was actually, I think, over 4 hours, Mike.
Maybe. And there
Yeah.
used to be an extended, it was called Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, the extended journey. You could
Mhm,
get it bootleg, but
mhm.
somebody, legally stepped in and stopped that.
Question for you. Will we get a Planes, Trains Criterion release?
Oh, that would,
Is
that
there
would
a film is there
thrill
any other
me.
film you can think that deserves it more than that right now?
No, and especially knowing although when you watch the deleted scenes, they're so grainy because it's basically
Sure.
VHS tapes that were found in John Hughes'
Yeah,
basement.
right.
Um, but yeah, that I don't think so because it took so long to get those deleted scenes. When it
Yeah.
first came out, there's only one scene on the plane.
And I guess, you could say, honestly, this documentary is in some ways giving you a lot of that because it is a deep dive
Yeah.
into his life and his career and everything that he was going through at the time. And again, comedy and tragedy, right? I think that kind of sums it up. But this is one you've got to see. John Candy, I Like Me. It's currently streaming on Prime. Is this one that you'll have in your collection, Mike?
If a physical release comes out, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely.
I think you owe it to
That's the
yourself.
question, though. Will it get a physical release? I don't know.
I hope so. Now, is Prime tend to go down that same Netflix road where they don't release these
It's
things
funny
on?
you asked me because I was trying to think of that, and I don't
Mhm.
know of any exclusives, although I can think of the John Krasinski, s
Oh, yeah. Jack Ryan,
Jack Ryan series. That's
great
on
series.
DVD or Blu-ray.
Yeah.
So maybe this will get a Blu-ray release with maybe even more
This
footage.
is just to sum things or to wrap things up rather. I made this note because as they were showing clips in the documentary, it made me go and watch Uncle Buck. I was watching Uncle Buck last night, and I was pleasantly surprised to see Amy Madigan in the film. I had forgotten she was
His
in it,
love
and
interest.
his love interest, and we were just talking about her because she kind of made a comeback in the horror film Weapons,
Weapons, yeah.
and Candy being born on Halloween. We were gonna do this, but then Halloween Fest. So just me again. Oh, brother, bring it full circle for you folks. But yeah, listen, I'm glad we did it because this is one that I would want to have in the Oh Brother vault. For posterity's sake, just to get the chance to talk about John Candy, his legacy, his life, the laughs that he brought us, and also, as you pointed out a few times, the dramatic chops that he had, which is really what he started out wanting to do.
Yeah,
He didn't
yeah,
really set out to say, "I want to be a film comedian or whatever." You know what I mean?
right.
But it just led in that direction. So
And another term I don't think we've used yet is loyal.
yes.
Saturday Night Live was after him from the jump,
Hmm.
and he turned them down because he wanted to be loyal to SCTV.
Right. Even though he could have been making a much bigger paycheck than apparently he was making with SCTV.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Anything else, Mike, here to say before we wrap on John
No,
Candy?
other than the fact that while I watched this, there were several times that I had to, dab the old eyes.
Now, folks, whether you're listening or watching, what you just heard is a monumental statement because Mike is as stoic as they come. I send him Christmas cards; they go right into the trash heap. But he's proven he does have a heart.
I do. Somewhere
He
in
does
all
have
that
a
coldness.
It's like the Grinch, but, yeah, this one will put a lump in your throat more than
Yeah.
once. It is really, really touching, but very well done by Colin Hanks. So, there you go, John Candy. I like me,
My
and we
friends
like
liked
you too.
me.
We love John Candy here at the Oh Brother Podcast. But Mike, for those not, currently subscribed to the Oh Brother Podcast, what should they do? They should
Pick up your
scan
phone,
this QR code
which I
by
just had a little rodent enter this room.
yeah, take out your digital
Introduce
device.
people to
Look at this. Selena is
the
making her
giant
debut.
sized.
That is phenomenal.
You haven't seen her in a while.
No, and she looks so much like Shadow now,
Yeah. Yeah.
who Toothless from How to Train Your Dragon also kind of looks like Shadow and Selena. But yeah, Mike's cat there, kitten, Selena making her debut on the Oh Brother
Yeah.
Podcast. I love it. Wow, that's great.
And I don't know
Hey,
how she got in here, but
I can't pick up Shadow in that way. She just won't really have it. She likes
well,
to
the
be
funny
petted
thing,
and
I was going to send you a picture last night because whenever
Mm.
she's not around,
yeah.
I look in and who's she laying next to? Our
Mom.
mother.
Of course.
She's snuggled up next to her, like,
Yeah. Right. Right.
unbelievable.
That's cute. I'm glad she made the appearance there. She's not getting paid for this appearance. I just
No.
might want to break that to her, but
Yeah, sorry,
she's
Selena.
gonna get less than Candy was getting at SCTV. So all right. Well, listen, thanks for all of you that have been supporting us and all the new subscribers we've had out on the YouTube channel. Again, in the show notes to the audio episodes, there's a couple of things in there that I want to draw your attention to. One is there's a support the show link, and just for a couple of bucks, you can support the show and you get early access to the audio episodes. You get those days before other people do. And also, there's a link to send us a text. So we'd love to hear from you. We'd like to get engagement on the channel as well as through the podcast. So please reach out and drop us a line and let us know what you think of John Candy, I Like Me, the documentary now streaming on Prime. Mike, that's going to do it for another episode of the Over the Podcast. I've been your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith. And we will see you next time.
Bye, everyone. We like you.
Gobble, gobble.